let's move on to the story in the SMH today, the Sydney Morning Herald, that shows that support for the voice to Parliament is dropping. It's now at 53%. This is a trend where support has been falling. A lot of the polls are showing this. Patrick, there are now calls. We've seen Julian Lisa on Sky News today say that the government needs to come back to the negotiating table and find a model that has bipartisan support. Let's have a look at what he had to say.
I support the yes vote, I support the voice. I want to see this succeed, but I think where things are at the moment, we're seeing not just one poll here, but a trend over time. The issue that keeps being raised is this issue around the provision to deal with executive government. It's why I think that at this point the government needs to change the amendment in order to win the referendum. I don't want to see a referendum put and see it fail. I think if you remove some of the constitutional issues off the table by making a couple of amendments that I'm suggesting, you put this on a much safer footing.
Patrick Gorman, you're the Assistant Minister to the Prime Minister. Anthony Albanese must be getting worried that the voice is on track to fail. Will the government come back to the negotiating table, revisit this inclusion of executive government as Julian Lisa, who's just suggested?
The government will keep our commitment that we made during the election, which was to implement the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full. We'll keep the commitment that we made to respond to the call from the Uluru Statement from the Heart from 2017, which was ignored by both Prime Ministers Turnbull and Morrison. And we have always said that this was not a government initiative nor a Labor Party initiative. This was a request put to the Commonwealth Government from the Indigenous peoples of Australia.
But you're not worried about it failing now? You must be worried given where the polls are at.
Look, I know, as all of my colleagues do, that this will be a big change, but it's a change which time has come, and I'll be committing myself to the campaign to make sure that the yes vote is successful. But I just want to be clear, last year it was Bridget and the National Party who walked away from the negotiating table. This year it was Peter Dutton and the Liberal Party who walked away from the negotiating table. That door was always open.
But instead of having these conversations about who's to blame for walking away, isn't it better at this point to go back to that table, one last chance, as Julian Lisa suggests?
I've got great respect for Julian Lisa and his work that he's put into this very important constitutional reform over many, many years. But unfortunately, it's not the leader of the Liberal Party nor the leader of the National Party who's making these calls. They are not engaged in this process. They've chosen to walk away. Now, I hope that the Australian people can see that, yes, there's some political interests from those in the opposition parties to maybe scope out some political advantage by being on the no side, but actually the national interest sits on us all coming together and getting this
seriously,
up.
Bridget McKenzie have a response here. Do you want to respond to that, Bridget McKenzie?
Yeah, absolutely, Sharri. I mean, this is just ego and hubris on behalf of the Labor Party. Constitutional questions to the Australian public need to be held respectfully. And what Patrick has just displayed in his response is the assumption that the yes case has all the moral virtue, has all the positive benefit, without actually taking those who have serious concerns, constitutional concerns, legal and moral concerns, with the proposition put forward, are justifiably able to say, no, we do not think changing our constitution in this manner is an appropriate course of action to recognise First Australians. And I think the way he framed his answer to you, Sharri, belies the Labor Party's view of having a respectful two-sided debate going forward. I think if the question being put was, do we recognise First Australians in our constitution, the polling would show 95% say yes. But there are fundamental issues with the question, and the more Australians are getting to see the detail, the more they do not want to see their nation divided on race. And I think Albanese and the Labor government wanted this to slip through on the vibe, and Australians are smarter than that.
All right, and that debate will have a long way to go before the referendum later this year. Bridget McKenzie and Patrick Gorman, great to have you both.